All right, so the last part of the audits was to do some surveys. Also, we did went to some feed yards and specifically looked in feed yards. The first thing we did is we asked the feed yards, where are your cattle coming from? You know, the ones that are going to be in this audit that are going to the packer that we looked at in the cooler. We went, oh, where do the feeder calves come from? And it's interesting. This is some results just from some feed yards in Nebraska and Texas. In those feed yards, you'll see that a high percent of those cattle came out of Texas, but there are many other states that those cattle travel from. And in fact, if you look at the data, the average animal traveled 468 miles. So either from the stocker phase or the calf phase, that on the average that they got on a truck at the ranch or off a grass somewhere out in Kansas or Oklahoma or even Tennessee or Florida. And on average they travel 468 miles to get to the feed yard. So that is a significant stress on cattle when they have to travel that far. And so preparing those cattle before they get on the truck is really important. It's something that we work on as an industry. And you can see that most of these cattle are mixed in different pens. So we looked at within a pen and we said, okay, within that lot, you know, what are the sources of that lot? And you'll see, well, 83% were single source, but there were, when we put it all together, the other part, there was another 17, 18% of those cattle came from multiple sources, which does also inherently create issues with respect to marketing and raising those cattle. So as we look at all of the data and we ask producers, okay, based off of what you've seen here, what are some of the take-home messages? And I think the biggest message is as far as the transparency of our industry, whereby if we take a look at what we're producing, and if I'm a cow-calf producer and I want to know, am I doing a good job and producing a high-quality product for the consumer, how do I know that? Because I sell that animal generally just after weaning or maybe 45 days after weaning if they're a VAC 45 animal, and I will totally lose contact with how those cattle did because I sell them to the next segment. The next segment raises them on grass or in the feed yard, and then it either goes to the feed yard or to the packer. And so the transfer of information is probably by far the biggest issue that we have as an industry, because how can I make improvements if I don't know if I'm doing a good job down the line with the consumer as we produce that beef product? So what they talked about is that we need to, you know, the strategy team came together and they said, we need a transparent system of information sharing regarding animals and products among the different chain segments. So that's the cow-calf, the stocker, the feed yard, the packer, the retailer, then finally to the consumer. And we also need to build trust and working together to provide assurance to the customer that we are trying to do everything in place or put every opportunity in place to maximize the safety of that product as well as the eating satisfaction and the quality of the product. And then finally, we need to be able to tell people the story about beef and let them understand, better understand, you know, why we do certain production practices, and help consumers understand that the cattle producer, they're in the business of producing a healthy, happy animal. Happy might be low stress or however you might define it, but an animal that will grow well. And those animals that grow well are those that never get sick, that are given plenty of food, that are content and work through the production system from one end to the other and never go backwards, never through stress or through, you know, mishandling or anything, never go backwards. And so as an industry, we do that. So it's important for us to be able to tell that story to the producers, that that is the goal of every producer that produces a beef product.